The galaxy had been quiet for 50,000 years. No wars, no rebellions, no chaos. The Veltar made sure of that. They ruled everything that lived and breathed in the stars, and they had done so since before most civilizations even learned. To make fire, Commander Velkoth stood 12 feet tall in his crystalline armor, watching the stars through the massive windows of Monitor Station 7. His skin shifted from deep purple to silver as he moved, catching the light from distant suns. Like all of his kind, he had never known death. His body healed from any wound. His mind remembered everything perfectly, and time meant nothing to him. Sector 7 was considered the worst assignment in the Veltar Empire. It was far from the core worlds, filled with primitive planets and young species that barely knew how to leave their home systems. Most of these species destroyed themselves within a few thousand years. The lucky ones managed to build simple space travel before they wiped themselves out with wars or pollution. Velkoth had been stationed here for 3,000 years. To him, it felt like a brief assignment. He spent his time reading reports from automated sensors and occasionally checking on developing worlds. Nothing ever happened in Sector 7 that required real attention. On the other side of the galaxy, in a small yellow star system, something new was happening. Humans had finally built their first ship capable of traveling faster than light. The ship was called the UES Discovery, and it represented the best that Earth could offer. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Discovery, looking at the star charts with excitement and fear. He was 35 years old, which made him one of the older members of the crew. In human terms, he was experienced and wise. In galactic terms, he was barely past infancy. Dr. Lisa Chong worked at her station nearby, checking and rechecking the biological sensors. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though she had never actually seen any. Her job was to study whatever they might find out there among the stars. She was nervous, but trying not to show it. Chief Engineer Ryan Blake monitored the engines from his position below the bridge. He was proud of the faster-than-light drive he had helped design. It was crude compared to what older civilizations might have, but it worked. That was what mattered. Communications Officer Katie Wells sat at her post, listening to the empty space around them. She hoped to hear signals from other intelligent species, but so far there was only silence. The universe seemed very large and very empty. The Discovery had been traveling for 2 weeks when disaster struck. The faster-than-light drive began making strange noises, and Ryan Blake noticed problems with the power systems. The ship dropped back into normal space near a star system that was not on any Earth charts. Jake Morrison called his senior officers together in the small meeting room behind the bridge. The situation was serious. They were stranded in unknown space with a damaged engine, and they had no idea how to get home. Lisa Chong studied the sensor readings of the nearby planets. Most were empty rocks, but one showed signs of artificial structures. Someone had built something there, something big enough to see from space. Katie Wells tried to scan for communication signals and found them immediately. The signals were strong and clear, using technology far beyond anything humans had developed. Someone was out there, and they were much more advanced than Earth. Ryan Blake estimated that repairs would take at least a week, maybe longer. They needed help, and the only place to get it was from whoever had built those structures on the nearby planet. Morrison made the hardest decision of his career. He ordered Katie Wells to send a message toward the artificial structures, asking for help. It was humanity's first attempt to communicate with an alien species. The message was simple. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Discovery. We are peaceful explorers with engine problems. Can you help us? On Monitor Station 7, Velkoth received the message and almost deleted it automatically. Another primitive species had stumbled into his sector. They usually sent crude radio signals before destroying themselves. But something about this message was different. The ship that sent it was actually traveling between stars, not just broadcasting from a planet. Velkoff looked at the sensor data more carefully. The human ship was small and obviously damaged, but it had working faster-than-light technology. Most species took millions of years to develop such technology. According to his records, humans had only discovered electricity a few hundred years ago. Out of curiosity more than duty, Velkoff decided to respond. He sent a message back to the Discovery, written in mathematics that any space-traveling species should understand. The message gave coordinates for docking with Monitor Station 7 and basic safety protocols. Jake Morrison gathered his crew. When the reply came, the mathematics were complex, but Katie Wells managed to decode them with the ship's computers. Someone was inviting them to dock with what appeared to be a space station. Lisa Chang ran every scan she could on the station. It was enormous, easily 50 times larger than the Discovery. The technology readings were all for instrument scales. Whatever species built it was far beyond human capabilities. Ryan Blake worried about whether their damaged ship could even make the journey to the station. The faster-than-light drive was completely offline, and they would have to use normal engines. It would take 6 hours to reach the station. Jake Morrison gave the order to proceed. They had no choice but to trust these aliens. Without help, the Discovery would drift in space until the crew ran out of food and air. As the Discovery slowly approached Monitor Station 7, Velkoff prepared to meet his first humans. He expected them to be like every other young species he had encountered, frightened, primitive, and probably dead within a few centuries from some war or disaster they would cause themselves. He had no idea that he was about to meet the one species in the galaxy that could threaten the immortal Veltar Empire. The beings approaching his station carried within their short lives a power that 50,000 years of Veltar dominance had never faced. The Discovery docked with Monitor Station 7 without incident. Jake Morrison, Lisa Chang, Ryan Blake, and Katie Wells prepared to step into the unknown and make humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. None of them knew they were about to change the galaxy forever. The airlock between the Discovery and Monitor Station 7 opened with a soft hiss. Jake Morrison stepped through first, followed by his 3 senior officers. The station's artificial gravity felt exactly like Earth's, which surprised him. The air smelled clean and had no unusual odors. The docking bay was enormous. The Discovery looked like a toy inside it. Strange lights moved along the walls in patterns that made no sense to human eyes. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans. Commander Velkoff waited for them in the center of the bay. When the humans first saw him, they stopped walking. He was 12 feet tall and looked like he was made of living crystal. His skin changed colors as he moved, shifting from purple to silver to blue. His eyes glowed with a soft light that seemed to come from within. Jake Morrison forced himself to walk forward. His heart was beating fast, but he tried to look calm. This was the moment that would define humanity's future among the stars. He stopped 10 feet away from the alien commander and spoke carefully. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. Thank you for allowing us to dock with your station." Velkoff studied the small beings in front of him. They were so tiny and fragile looking. Their skin was soft and pink, and they had hair growing from their heads. Most interesting of all, he could see their hearts beating through their thin skin. They were obviously afraid, but they were trying to hide it. "I am Commander Velkoff of the Veltar Empire. Your ship appears to be damaged. What assistance do you require?" His voice was deep and seemed to come from everywhere at once. The humans looked at each other nervously. Katie Wells activated her translation device, but the alien was already speaking perfect English. Lisa Chang stepped forward with her medical scanner in her hands. Commander, with your permission, I would like to study your biology. We have never met another intelligent species before. This is very important for our science. Velkoth was amused by the request. These humans were like children, curious about everything. He nodded his consent. You may conduct your studies. I am equally curious about your species. Lisa began her scans immediately. What she saw on her instruments made no sense. Velkoth's cells were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They showed no signs of aging or decay. Every cell in his body was perfect, as if he had been created yesterday. Commander, Lisa said carefully, how old are you? I have existed for 57,000 of your Earth years. Velkoth replied casually, as if discussing the weather. Humans stared at him in shock. Jake Morrison felt dizzy. This being was older than all of human civilization. He had been alive when humans were still living in caves and hunting with stone tools. Ryan Blake found his voice first. How is that possible? How can you live so long? We do not die from age, Velkoth explained. Our bodies repair themselves constantly. We have perfect memory and unlimited time to learn and grow. Death is something that happens to lesser species. Over. The next several hours, Velkoth showed the humans around his station. The technology was amazing, but also puzzling. Everything was incredibly advanced, but it also seemed very old. The designs had not changed in thousands of years. Ryan Blake examined the station's power systems with Velkoth's permission. The technology was beyond human understanding, but he noticed something strange. All the equipment looked exactly the same as equipment in other parts of the station. They were obviously much older. Commander, Ryan asked, when was this station built? Approximately 30,000 years ago, Velkoth replied. It has required no significant updates since then. Katie Wells was monitoring communications throughout the station. She noticed that all the Veltar spoke in the same formal, calm manner. They never seemed excited or emotional about anything. Even when discussing important matters, their voices remained flat and steady. Lisa Chang continued her biological studies and made a disturbing discovery. While scanning Velkoth's brain, she detected unusual quantum signatures in his neural pathways. The patterns suggested that Veltar consciousness operated on a very specific frequency that could potentially be disrupted. She kept this information to herself, unsure what it meant or whether it was important. But something told her it might be very significant later. During their third day on the station, Velkoth asked the humans about their short lifespans. He had learned that humans typically lived only 70 to 100 years. How can you accomplish anything meaningful in such a brief time? He asked Jake Morrison during dinner. Jake thought about the question carefully. Maybe because our time is limited, we try harder to make it count. We know we don't have forever, so we work faster and take more risks. But you die before you can truly understand the universe, Velkoth pointed out. Knowledge takes time to accumulate. Wisdom requires centuries of experience. Lisa Chong joined the conversation. Commander, in your 57,000 years, how many new discoveries have you made? How many new inventions or ideas? Velkoth considered this. The question seemed simple, but when he tried to answer, he realized something troubling. Most of his knowledge came from his early centuries. In recent millennia, he had learned very little that was truly new. We achieved perfection long ago, he said finally. There was no need for further change. But don't you get bored? Katie Wells asked. Don't you want to explore new ideas or try different things? The question confused Velkoth. Boredom was not something the Veltar experienced. They existed in a state of calm perfection, unchanging and eternal. The idea of wanting change seemed foreign and unnecessary. Ryan Blake had been studying the station's historical records. With Velkoth's permission, What he found was shocking. The Veltar had not developed any significant new technology in over 20,000 years. Their civilization had reached a plateau and simply stopped growing. "Commander," Ryan said during their final evening on the station, "your people are incredibly advanced, but you've stopped moving forward. You have all this knowledge and power, but you're not using it to explore or create." Velkoff felt something he had not experienced in millennia. It might have been doubt. These short-lived humans seemed to accomplish incredible things in their brief existence. They had developed faster than light travel in just a few centuries. While the Veltar had taken millions of years to achieve the same thing, the humans worked frantically to repair their ship because they knew their time was limited. The Veltar moved slowly because they had unlimited time. But perhaps Velkoff thought unlimited time led to wasted time. When the Discovery was finally repaired, Velkoff made an unexpected decision. He requested permission from the Veltar Council to accompany the humans back to their home world. He told his superiors that he wanted to study this primitive species more closely. The council approved his request without much interest. High Counselor Velthane dismissed humans as just another young species that would probably destroy itself within a few thousand years. He saw no harm in letting Velkoff waste his time studying them. Jake Morrison was surprised by the request, but agreed to take Velkoff to Earth. Having a friendly alien ambassador might help humanity make a good impression on the galactic community. As the Discovery prepared to leave Monitor Station 7, none of them realized that this meeting would change everything. The immortal Veltar were about to discover that their eternal existence had a fatal weakness, and humanity was about to learn that sometimes the greatest strength comes from accepting mortality rather than fighting it. Lisa Chong looked at her biological data one more time before they departed. The quantum signatures in Velkoff's brain patterns troubled her. She had a feeling they would be very important soon, though she could not yet understand why. The Discovery and its unusual passenger began the journey toward Earth, carrying with them the seeds of a conflict that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Discovery approached Earth after a 2-week journey from Monitor Station 7. Velkoff stood on the bridge beside Jake Morrison, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the viewing screen. He had seen thousands of worlds in his long life, but something about Earth seemed different. "It's beautiful," Velkoff said, surprising himself. The Veltar rarely found anything beautiful anymore. Beauty required the ability to be moved by something, and immortals had seen everything. "Countless times. It's home," Jake Morrison replied simply. "The only home humanity has ever known." Earth's orbital defense stations detected the Discovery and immediately noticed the massive alien life sign aboard. Within minutes, every major government on Earth knew that humanity's first contact mission had succeeded. They also knew that humanity now had its first alien visitor. Dr. Amanda Foster waited at the Lunar Research Station, where the Discovery would dock. She was Earth's leading quantum physicist, and she had been studying Velkoff's energy readings transmitted from the THIM ship. The data showed quantum patterns unlike anything in human science. Dr. Carl Mitchell stood beside her, reviewing the biological information that Lisa Chong had sent ahead. As Earth's top expert in cellular biology, he was fascinated by the Veltar's apparent immortality. He had dozens of questions and hundreds of tests he wanted to run. The Discovery docked without incident. Velkoff had to duck to fit through the station's corridors, but he managed to reach the main laboratory where Earth's scientists waited. When he entered the room, everyone fell silent. Seeing an alien in person was very different from viewing pictures. "Welcome to human space," Dr. Foster said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are honored to meet you." Velkoff nodded politely. "I am curious to learn about your species." You have accomplished much in a very short time." Over the following days, teams of scientists worked around the clock to study Velkoff. He cooperated willingly, finding their enthusiasm refreshing. The Veltar had not shown such excitement about learning anything new in thousands of years. Dr. Foster's quantum studies revealed something amazing. Velkoff's consciousness existed in a quantum state that allowed him to maintain perfect memory and repair any damage to his body. The quantum field around his brain operated on a very specific frequency that kept him immortal. But Dr. Foster also discovered something else. Human brain waves, when measured carefully, operated on frequencies that were almost perfectly opposite to Velkoff's quantum patterns. It was like finding two puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly. Dr. Mitchell made his own shocking discovery. Velkoff's cells were indeed immortal, but they required a specific quantum environment to maintain their immortality. When Dr. Mitchell exposed Velkoff's cell samples to recordings of human brain waves, the cells began to change. "Lisa, come look at this." Dr. Mitchell called to Dr. Chong. She hurried over to his microscope and gasped at what she saw. The Veltar cells were aging. For the first time in their existence, they showed signs of wear and breakdown. The human brain wave recordings were somehow disrupting their immortal nature. "We need to test this more," Lisa said quietly. "But I think we've found something incredible." Dr. Foster ran more tests with human volunteers. She discovered that every human brain produced quantum frequencies that could disrupt Veltar neural patterns. The effect was stronger in some humans than others, but it existed in everyone. Meanwhile, Velkoff was having his own revelations about humanity. He visited art museums and was stunned by the creativity humans showed. The Veltar had not created new art in millennia. They saw no point in it since they had already achieved perfection. He watched human music performances and felt emotions he had forgotten existed. The music was imperfect by Veltar standards, but it moved him in ways that perfect Veltar compositions never could. Most surprising of all, he observed human families. Parents caring for children they would only know. For a few decades, grandparents sharing wisdom with grandchildren they might not live to see grow up. The humans loved each other fiercely because they knew their time together was limited. "Why do you care so much about each other?" Velkoff asked Jake Morrison during one of their conversations. "You will all die anyway." Jake thought about the question. "Maybe that's exactly why we care. We know our time is short, so we try to make it meaningful. We love because we know we'll lose each other someday." "The Veltar do not experience such attachments," Velkoff said. "We are all eternal, so there is no urgency to our relationships." "That sounds lonely," Jake replied. The word hit Velkoff like a physical blow. Lonely. He had not realized it before, but that was exactly what he had been feeling for thousands of years. The Veltar's immortality had separated them from the intensity of life itself. Back in the laboratory, Dr. Foster made the final breakthrough. She discovered that human quantum frequencies could be amplified and focused. When she created a device that projected concentrated human brain wave patterns, the effect on Velkoff was immediate and dramatic. He staggered and nearly fell. For the first time in 57,000 years, he felt weak. His perfect memory became fuzzy. His immortal body began to show signs of fatigue. "Turn it off," Lisa Chong said quickly. "We don't want to hurt him." Dr. Foster shut down the device, and Velkoff slowly recovered, but the damage was done. He now knew that humans possessed a power over the Veltar that no other species had. "Ever wielded, your people can kill us," he said quietly. "You can make us mortal." The humans looked at each other nervously. They had not intended to discover a weapon. They were just trying to understand how Velkoff's immortality worked. "We don't want to hurt anyone," Dr. Foster said. We just want to learn. But your governments will not see it that way, Velkoth replied. They will see this as a weapon against the Veltar Empire. He was right. Earth's military leaders were already studying the quantum frequency data. They saw the potential for a new type of weapon that could work against immortal enemies. They also saw the Veltar Empire as a potential threat to humanity's expansion. Into the galaxy. General Patricia Newman, Earth's top military commander, received the classified reports with great interest. She immediately began planning how to use this discovery to protect Earth from any future Veltar aggression. We need to build these quantum frequency generators as quickly as possible, she told her staff. If the Veltar decide we're a threat, we need to be ready to defend ourselves. Dr. Chang tried to argue for caution. We don't know what the long-term effects might be. We shouldn't weaponize this technology without more research. But the military had already made their decision. Humanity had found a way to fight gods, and they were not going to waste the opportunity. Velkoth sensed the change in the humans around him. They were still polite and friendly, but there was a new tension in the air. He realized that his visit to Earth had changed everything. He sent a message to the Veltar Council, reporting on his discoveries about human mortality and its effects on Veltar physiology. He tried to present the information as scientific curiosity, but he knew the Council would understand the implications. High Counselor Velthone read the message with growing alarm. A species that could kill immortals was more than just interesting. It was the greatest threat the Veltar had ever faced. Summon the War Council, Velthane ordered. We may need to take action against this human species before they become too dangerous. On Earth, preparations began for what everyone hoped would never come. Humanity had made first contact with an immortal alien empire, and both sides were now preparing for the possibility of war. Velkoth stood in his quarters on the lunar station, looking out at the stars. He had spent his entire existence believing that immortality was the greatest gift in the universe. Now he wondered if mortality might be the greater blessing. The humans lived such short lives, but they lived them with an intensity and purpose that immortals could never match. They loved deeply because they knew love was temporary. They created beautiful things because they knew beauty was fleeting. They fought for their beliefs because they knew they had limited time to make a difference. For the first time in 57,000 years, Velkoth wondered what it would be like to be mortal. He wondered what it would be like to face death and find meaning in that finite existence. He did not know that he would soon find out. High Counselor Velthine had ruled the Veltar Empire for 100,000 years. In all that time, no species had ever threatened the immortal beings who controlled the galaxy. Now, sitting in his crystal throne on the capital world, he read Velkoth's report with growing fear. The humans could kill immortals. This tiny species from an insignificant world possessed the one power that could end Veltar dominance forever. Velthane had no choice but to act quickly and decisively. Summon War Leader Velraiser, he commanded his subordinates. The human threat must be eliminated before it spreads. War Leader Velraiser had commanded the Eternal Fleet for 30,000 years. His ships had never known defeat because the Veltar had never faced an enemy capable of truly harming them. Other species could damage Veltar ships, but they could never kill Veltar crews. The immortal warriors simply healed from any wound and continued fighting. High Counselor, Velraiser said when he arrived at the throne room, what enemy requires the full attention of the Eternal Fleet? A species called humans, Velthane replied. They have discovered how to make us mortal. Every human alive is a potential weapon against our kind. Velraiser studied the intelligence reports from Velkoth. The humans were primitive by Veltar standards, but their quantum brain patterns were perfectly designed to disrupt Veltar immortality. It was as if the universe had created them specifically to be Veltar killers. I will take 50 dreadnoughts to their home system. Velraiser? Decided. We will sterilize their world before they can spread this threat to other species. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Patricia Newman had been working day and night to prepare humanity's defenses. Her scientists had built dozens of mortality field generators based on Dr. Foster's research. These devices could project human brainwave patterns across several miles of space. That the human fleet was small compared to what was coming. Earth had only 15 combat ships capable of deep space warfare. They were fast and well armed, but they had never been tested against immortal enemies with technology thousands of years more advanced. We're not ready for this, Admiral Carl. Brooks told General Newman during a strategy meeting. Our ships are no match for Veltar dreadnoughts. We don't need to match them ship for ship, Newman replied. We just need to get close enough to use the mortality field generators. Once their crews become mortal, they'll be as vulnerable as we are. Jake Morrison had been given command of a new ship called the UES Defiance. It was humanity's most advanced warship, equipped with the latest mortality field technology. His crew included many of the same people who had made first contact with Velkoth. Lisa Chong worked as the ship's science officer, monitoring the quantum field generators that were their primary weapon against the Veltar. Ryan Blake had been promoted to chief engineer of the entire human fleet, but he chose to stay aboard the Defiance with his friends. Katie Wells handled communications for the fleet, desperately trying to maintain contact with Velkoth and the moderate members of the Veltar Council who might prevent this war. Velkoth found himself caught between his loyalty to his own species and his growing understanding of humanity. He had tried to convince the Veltar Council that humans were not a threat, but his own reports had proven otherwise. They can kill us, Velkoth, High Counselor Velthane had said during their final conversation. A species that can kill immortals cannot be allowed to exist. But they don't want to kill us, Velkoth had argued. They're curious and creative, not warlike. Given time, we could learn to coexist. You have been infected by their mortality, Velthane replied coldly. You no longer think clearly. Report to War Leader Velraiser immediately. You will serve as an advisor during the cleansing of their world. Now Velkoth stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Velraiser's flagship. Around him, 50 Veltar. Dreadnoughts moved through space toward Earth. Each ship was massive, built to last forever, and crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. The first battle happened at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Newman had positioned her small fleet near Neptune, hoping to catch the Veltar ships by surprise. Her plan was simple: hit them fast with the mortality field generators, then retreat before they could respond. The human ships were tiny compared to the Veltar dreadnoughts, but they were much faster. The UES Defiance led the attack, racing directly toward the Eternal Dominion, while projecting its mortality field at full power. Leader Velraiser laughed when he saw the human fleet approaching. 15 ships against 50? These humans are even more primitive than I thought. But his laughter stopped when the mortality field hit his ship. Suddenly, for the first time in 30,000 years, Velraiser felt weak. His perfect memory became cloudy. His body began to ache in ways he had forgotten were possible. All around him, his crew was experiencing the same thing. Veltar warriors who had fought for millennia were suddenly afraid. They could feel their immortality slipping away, replaced by something they had never experienced. The fear of death. The effect spread throughout the Veltar fleet as more human ships activated their mortality field generators. For the first time in galactic history, Veltar crews began to die. Some were killed by weapons that their immortal bodies should have easily survived. Others simply collapsed from the shock of becoming mortal after countless centuries of eternal life. Retreat, Velrazor ordered, but his voice was weak and uncertain. Fall back to minimum safe distance. The Veltar fleet pulled away from the human ships, leaving the battlefield to Admiral Newman's forces. It was the first time in 50,000 years that the Veltar had retreated from any enemy, but the victory was temporary. War leader Velrazor regrouped his forces and changed his tactics. Instead of engaging the human fleet directly, he would use the Veltar's superior technology to destroy Earth from long range. "Prepare the planet-killer weapons," he ordered. "We will sterilize their world from beyond the range of their mortality." Fields. Velkoth watched in horror as the massive weapons powered up. These devices could crack a planet's crust and boil away its atmosphere. Once fired, nothing could stop them from destroying Earth and every human on it. "You cannot do this," Velkoth said to Velrazor. "They are not just enemies. They are a young species trying to find their place in the galaxy." "They are a threat to our existence," Velrazor replied. "All threats must be eliminated." Back on Earth, Dr. Foster was working frantically on a desperate plan. If she could amplify the mortality field generators using Earth's entire population as quantum resonators, she might be able to project the field across the entire solar system. "It's never been tested on this scale," Dr. Mitchell warned her. "We don't know what it might do to the human volunteers." "We don't have a choice," Foster replied. "If we don't try this, everyone on Earth dies anyway." The plan required every human on Earth to focus their thoughts in a specific pattern while connected to quantum amplification devices. It was the largest scientific experiment in human history, and it had to work perfectly on the first try. Morrison received the transmission from Earth just as the Veltar planet-killer weapons reached full charge. The human fleet was too far away to stop them, and there was no time for another attack run. "All ships retreat to Earth immediately," Jake ordered. "Prepare for final defense of the home world." As the human fleet raced back toward Earth, Veltar dreadnoughts followed at a safe distance. War leader Velrazor was taking no chances. He would destroy the human world from far enough away that their mortality fields could not reach his ships, but he had not counted on humanity's greatest strength, their willingness to risk everything when their survival was at stake. Every human on Earth was about to become part of the largest weapon ever created, not to conquer the galaxy, but simply to survive long enough to see another day. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and both species knew that only one would survive to see its end. The immortal Veltar Empire faced its first real threat in 50,000 years. While humanity prepared to fight for the right to exist among the stars, Velkoth stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, torn between his duty to his species and his growing belief that the Veltar were making a terrible mistake. Soon he would have to choose which side he truly supported in this war between immortality and the fierce, desperate courage of mortal beings. The planet-killer weapons on the Eternal Dominion began their final charging sequence. War leader Velrazor watched the energy readings climb toward maximum power. In 10 minutes, Earth would be nothing but floating rocks and dead space. "All human ships are retreating to their home world," reported his tactical officer. "They cannot reach us in time to stop the firing sequence." Velrazor nodded with satisfaction. The human threat would end today. No species would ever again possess the power to kill immortals. On Earth, Dr. Foster stood in the Global Command Center, watching as 8 billion humans prepared to link their minds together. Every person on the planet had volunteered for the quantum resonance experiment. They all understood that failure meant death for everyone they had ever loved. "Quantum amplifiers are online," Dr. Mitchell reported. "We're getting strong signals from population centers worldwide. Their resonance field is building." Dr. Foster looked at the readings on her instruments. The quantum field generated by 8 billion human minds was beyond anything she had imagined possible. If her calculations were correct, it would create a mortality field that could reach across the entire solar system. But will it work? Asked General Newman, who had arrived to oversee the final defense of Earth. We're about to find out, Foster replied. Jake Morrison brought the UES Defiance into Earth's atmosphere, along with the rest of the human fleet. They were too far away to attack the Veltar ships, but they could still protect Earth's cities. From any smaller weapons, Lisa Chung monitored the quantum resonance from her station on the Defiance. Jake, the field strength is incredible. I've never seen readings like this. Will it be enough? Jake asked. I don't know, Lisa admitted. We're in completely unknown territory here. On the Eternal Dominion, Velkoff felt the change before anyone else. A strange sensation washed over him, like cold water flowing through his mind. Around him, other Veltar crew members began to look confused and uncertain. Something is wrong, Velkoff said to War Leader Vel Razor. The humans are doing something. Vel Razor ignored him. The planet killer weapons were almost ready to fire. Nothing could stop them now, but the quantum field from Earth was growing stronger every second. 8 billion human minds focused there. Thoughts on survival, on protecting their world, on refusing to surrender to immortal tyrants. The combined force of their mortality-driven determination created a wave of quantum energy that spread outward from Earth at the speed of light. When the mortality field reached the Veltar fleet, the effect was immediate and devastating. Every immortal being on every ship suddenly felt their eternal life slipping away. Warriors who had fought for thousands of years collapsed as their bodies experienced aging for the first time. Commanders who had led fleets across the galaxy found their perfect memories. Becoming cloudy and uncertain. War Leader Vel Razor staggered as the field hit him. For 30,000 years, he had been the most feared military commander in the galaxy. Now he felt weak and confused, barely able to stand. The weapons, he gasped. Fire the weapons. But his crew was in chaos. Half of them had never experienced physical weakness before. They didn't know how to function while feeling mortal. The planet killer weapons remained unfired as their operators struggled to understand what was happening to them. Velkoff realized that this was his moment to choose. His own people were trying to destroy a world full of innocent beings. The humans had only defended themselves against an unprovoked attack. Everything he had learned about mortality and the meaning of life told him what he had to do. Stop this, Velkoff said to Vel Razor. Order the fleet to retreat. The humans have proven they can defend themselves. Never, Vel Razor replied, though his voice was weak. We will not be defeated by mortals. Velkoff looked around the bridge. The Veltar crew was slowly recovering from the initial shock of the mortality field, but they were still confused and frightened. They had never felt vulnerable before. You are wrong, Velkoff said quietly. We have already been defeated. Not by weapons or ships, but by something far more powerful. What could be more powerful than immortality? Vel Razor demanded. The courage that comes from knowing you might die, Velkoff replied. The determination that comes from having limited time. The love that comes from knowing you might lose what matters to you. Vel Razor raised his weapon to kill Velkoff, but the ancient commander moved faster than the war leader expected. For the first time in his long existence, Velkoff fought not for duty or honor, but for something he believed in with all his heart. The battle was brief but decisive. Vel Razor, weakened by the mortality field and shaken by the loss of his immortal confidence, could not match Velkoff's desperate determination. When it ended, the war leader lay dead on the bridge of his own flagship. Velkoff took command of the Eternal Dominion and immediately ordered the fleet to stand down. But he knew that other Veltar commanders might not obey him. The attack on Earth had to end completely, and there was only one way to ensure that. "Attention all ships," Velkoth broadcast across the fleet. "I am assuming command of this operation. All vessels will power down weapons and prepare to withdraw." Several ship commanders refused to obey. They powered up their own planet killer. Weapons determined to complete their mission even without Velrazor's leadership. Velkoth made his final choice. He turned the Eternal Dominion's weapons on the rebel ships, destroying them before they could fire on Earth. It was the first time in Veltar history that one of their own had killed other Veltar to protect an alien species. On Earth, Dr. Foster watched her instruments as the quantum resonance field began to affect the entire Veltar fleet. The readings showed that the mortality field was spreading beyond the solar system, carried by the quantum network that connected all Veltar communication systems. "My God," she whispered, "it's not just affecting the ships here. The field is spreading through their entire empire." Across the galaxy, every Veltar felt the change. High Counselor Velthane, sitting in his crystal throne, suddenly experienced something he had never felt before: the fear of death. Around him, his advisors and servants looked at each other with confusion and terror. For the first time in 50,000 years, the immortal beings who ruled the galaxy understood what every other species had always known. Life was precious because it could end. Time was valuable because it was limited. Love was powerful because it could be lost. The psychological impact was immediate and overwhelming. Veltar commanders across the galaxy began calling for peace talks. Civilians who had never worried about anything suddenly felt the weight of mortality pressing down on them. The empire that had remained unchanged for millennia began to crumble as its citizens discovered what it meant to be truly alive. High Counselor Velthine sent an emergency message to the fleet at Earth. All hostilities immediately. Open negotiations with the human leadership. The war was over almost as quickly as it had begun. Not because one side had defeated the other, but because the immortal Veltar had learned something that changed everything they thought they knew about existence. Velkoth remained on the Eternal Dominion as it approached Earth under a flag of truce. The mortality field had affected him too, but instead of fear, he felt something like relief. For the first time in 57,000 years, his life had a deadline. That made every moment precious. Jake Morrison met with Velkoth in the lunar station where their friendship had begun. The immortal commander looked different now. His crystal skin seemed less bright, his movements less perfect, but his eyes held something they had never contained before: genuine emotion. "I am dying," Velkoth said simply. "The mortality field has made me truly mortal. I have perhaps a few decades left to live." "I'm sorry," Jake replied. "We never wanted to hurt you." "You did not hurt me," Velkoth said. "You gave me the greatest gift possible. You taught me what it means to be alive." The peace treaty was signed aboard the Discovery, floating in space between Earth and the remains of the Veltar fleet. Humanity gained access to Veltar technology and knowledge. In return, they offered to help the immortal species learn how to live with mortality. Some Veltar chose to remain immortal, retreating to distant parts of the galaxy where the mortality field had not reached. Others embraced their new mortal existence, discovering creativity and passion they had never known before. Dr. Foster established research centers to study the intersection of mortality and consciousness. Her work led to breakthroughs that extended human lifespan while preserving the urgency that drove human achievement. Velkoth spent his remaining years on Earth, teaching humans about the galaxy and learning about the beauty of mortal existence. When he died 30 years later, both species mourned him as a bridge between two very different ways of life. His grave marker bore words in both human and Veltar languages. He chose to live by choosing to die. The galaxy was never the same. The immortal empire had fallen not to weapons or conquest, but to the simple truth that life without death is existence without meaning. Humanity had won their greatest victory, not by destroying their enemies, but by teaching them what it truly meant to be a live dot. And in the end, both species learned that the most powerful force in the universe was not immortality or technology or vast fleets of starships,